priced out of home ownership. Skyrocketing housing prices mean the average Portland family can't afford the average Portland home.
My dream home would be single family. I like to have a backyard for the boys to play in, for me to do things in.
Tonight, housing advocates join us to talk about the obstacles real families face when trying to buy a home, and a new media partnership that explores the housing crisis in the Portland area. From KGW News, this is Straight Talk with Laurel Porter.
Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Laurel Porter. The cost of housing in the Portland Metro has skyrocketed, leaving average families who at one time could have afforded a home here left out of the American dream of home ownership. The city has called it a housing crisis, and it's even more pronounced for people of color. How is the housing crisis affecting real families, and what are the answers? That's what prompted a new partnership between the University of Oregon, local media outlets, including KGW, and community partners to create discussions that move toward real solutions. It's called Open Housing. Tonight, we invited area housing advocates here to Straight Talk to give us a better idea of what the housing crisis in the Portland area looks like and feels like for Portland families and what can be done. Welcome to my guest, Shalonda Menifee, home buying specialist for the Portland Housing Center. Daniel Lechuga, a lead counselor with the African American Alliance for Home Ownership, and Cupid Alexander, a senior housing analyst with the City of Portland's Housing Bureau and a community liaison with North and Northeast Portland. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Straight Talk. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Let's start off by going down the table and just in a nutshell, just about 30 seconds or so, what are your impressions? What do you think is going on with the Portland housing market? How would you describe it compared to years past? How bad is it? We'll start with Shalonda.
So right now it's just really frustrating for some people and scary for a lot of people to wonder if they can purchase, because the housing market is it's increasing and, you know, getting out of reach for most of our medium family income families.
Well, one of the things is people that are tired of renting and paying high rents think that just wanting to buy a house is something you step right into, but the challenges, like she said, are there, and most people don't know the challenges are there until they actually start looking and talking to people about what it takes to become a homeowner.
Cupid, you grew up here. You went to Wilson High School. I know Shalonda grew up here too. How have you seen it change?
Well, you know, one of the things is that Portland is popular. Portland is a great place to live. It's a great place for families. But because of that popularity, you look at Portlandia, you look at all the media attention we're getting, it's causing a lot of people to want to move here. And Portland is still growing, and we're looking at ways to increase homeownership opportunities in areas that we haven't necessarily had to focus on in the past.
So it was kind of cool that we became cool, but then until you see how it
Growing
affects
pains.
your life, that's
Growing
right.
pains.
I want to tell our viewers a little bit more about this project that I mentioned at the top of the show. You're all here as a special collaboration on this issue. It's called Open Housing, a project of the University of Oregon's Agora Journalism Center. And let me tell you just a little bit more about it. It's funded by the Jackson Foundation and includes several media partners. This spring and summer, the project is publishing a dozen long-form stories addressing access to housing, housing affordability, solutions to homelessness, and racial equity in Portland's neighborhoods. The in-depth stories are being jointly produced and published by KGW and the Pamplin Media Group, working with news staffers and freelance journalists. What are you all hearing from your clients out there, from people at the city? Are they complaining about what they're seeing, Daniel?
Yes, they are. One of the things is that not being able to qualify for what they think they could afford, and you know, the challenges of what it takes to become qualified. A lot of people don't realize that, you know, they should take care of their credit and their situation at an earlier age, but not a lot of us were taught that in high school. And if it were, it was very passed over really fast. And then as you're growing up, you know, you're spending your money unwisely, and now the decisions you made when you were younger, they're having effects now and not being able to qualify.
Yeah, can I add to that, Laurel?
Sure.
I think one of the things is that the idea of what home ownership is has changed over the years. So you're thinking a white picket fence, a family-sized house, and the result of the influx of individuals moving here puts more pressure on the supply, and because of the amount of demand we have, what looks like a home ownership opportunity has to change with the influx of individuals, especially since Oregon is known for its green spaces and we like to protect, and it's part of our economic driver. So those are some of the things. So like you look at the city of New York, and I'm sure everyone there would like to have a single family housing dwelling, but a lot of them have condos and apartments and penthouses because the area doesn't allow for that.
Or they have to travel a long way.
Exactly.
To work.
And so, I mean, Portland is not on that scale, but we're looking at ways to increase homeownership opportunities through different types of housing, situations.
Well, let's look at why things are changing. We have a graphic that was in one of our stories, if you want to look it up on our KGW News app, about the Portland house hunt, and it shows the median family income, and this is for the metro area, of $74,700. It's lower in the city of Portland in general at just under $61,000, and it's much lower for African American households at just over $27,000. Now, if you take that $74,700, families can afford a $330,000 home with a $16,500 down payment and an $1,800 a month mortgage. Now, the map that we have is also interactive if you go to the News app, and you can see that in Portland and Beaverton, the average home prices are far above $330,000, and you can see it right here. If you have to go out to Yamhill County, Columbia County, and towns out towards Mount Hood to find a home that a family that makes that median income can afford. Shalonda, how is this situation affecting your clients as they come in trying to look for a house to buy?
So a lot of our clients are really, they're scared because they want to be able to stay in the communities that they have lived for a few years and have settled, and they may have children. And for me, our focus is more on let's get mortgage ready. Instead of worrying about kind of what the market looks like, let's get mortgage ready so that when you are ready, we can look then at what is available. And sometimes, they don't really like that answer, but, my focus again is making sure that they are mortgage ready so that if something does come available in the neighborhood, that they are ready to purchase that.
You're nodding, Daniel.
Yes, definitely. Letting them know the sacrifices they make now, it will definitely reap the rewards down the road, but you have to start somewhere because it's one of those things, how bad do you really want a house? And what are you willing to sacrifice, financially? So it's understanding that some people, the more money you make, the easier it is to make that decision, but the less your income is, it's going to be a lot harder because what you have to sacrifice sometimes is grave,
And to add to that picture, I want to show you another graphic that just shows how housing prices have spiked since 2014. Just in a few years, they've gone up 30%, but wages have only gone up 7%, and that is the graphic that we showed you earlier. Pretty startling. And now I want to just take a look at what this is doing to a real family. We saw her in our open. This is from our article, House Hunt, Can the Average Portland Family Buy a Home? And it features a Beaverton family, 34-year-old Tanisha Doyle. She's a single mother of 3 boys. She works at Nike. She has a good job. She wants to find a home to buy near her work in Beaverton. So let's listen to how she describes how the surging housing market is affecting her.
As the prices go up, that is now affecting my life. It's affecting the way that I'm going to do things. It may be affecting my 30-minute commute that I want. If I have to buy, let's say, in Cornelius or Forest Grove versus buying in Beaverton, that's going to affect our lives. It's going to affect everything we do, from commutes to the family time we spend to trips we take, everything. And so I think that is one of the biggest things that go through my mind. It's going to affect my son's independence as well, as far as when they hang with their friends or what they do. I work in Beaverton, and I want to stay close to where I work. But as these home prices go up, Beaverton is becoming less and less affordable for people like me.
And Cupid, you were talking about concessions people are having to make. Is this representative of a lot of people that you hear about?
Yeah, you see a lot of people who would like to live in inner Northeast or Northeast Portland or North Portland or Southwest or Northwest Portland. And as the demand for housing increases, you're seeing a lot of people priced out. And that means that they're looking further and further away because it's more affordable out there. You're looking at Cornelius, you're looking at Forest Grove, you might even be in Yamhill County. And because they have the idea of like, I want this house house, I want this lifestyle, I want to live in these places, and where that's available is going to be further and further out. So that's why we're looking at different housing solutions for them, whether that's condo, whether that's duplex. We're trying to infill build. Some people are looking at ADUs, you're looking at tiny homes. We're trying to come up with a basket, like an array of housing alternatives that allow people at least to have an option towards purchasing.
I know I have an ADU going up right behind me in my house in Northeast Portland, so things are definitely changing. Let's take a look at what this means for our communities of color. And home ownership is the #1 way that people build wealth in the country and in Portland. We have a graphic that shows the home ownership gap in the Portland metro area, and you'll be able to see the big difference between whites and Asians, with home ownership at about 65% and home ownership for Latinos and Native Americans lagging behind. And for the African American community, it's at about 34%, according to this table. But another story I read said that it's down closer to 27%, so less than half what it is for white residents. So this is a big gap. Shalonda, what are some of the factors that led to this gap?
Factors that led to the gap?
Well, what's causing this?
I mean, there's been a lot of factors that have led to the gap. So when you look at the historical institutionalized practices in home buying for African Americans, that has impacted, their opportunities, or they were getting different types of loans that can, in the long term, would cause a big issue for them to afford. So when they were getting the ARMs and just the different types of loans that they were receiving, but it's also where they could buy. Now, currently, when we look at, we did our pipeline review, our annual report, and some of the challenges that we know for minorities are the having credit issues or debt to income. And we know that the majority of the median family income for minorities is at least 5%. Let's see, less than, oh no. Median family income is a little lower.
It definitely is.
People.
Well, we've seen a big change in the Portland area because of the things we're talking about, with 10,000 African American residents who've been displaced from North and Northeast Portland over the last decade. I want to read a quote to you from another story that we did, how market forces and bias that you were talking about, Shalonda, displaced African Americans in Portland. And here's the quote: "Portland's black community never had a stable home, kicked from west side to east side, squeezed and torn apart by urban renewal. But since the late 1800s, it always existed somewhere. Not anymore. The recent scattering of black residents to distant parts of the city and suburbs, which reduced North and Northeast Portland's black population by roughly half since 1990, is a diaspora, a population movement that disintegrates an entire cultural community." Cupid, you grew up in Northeast Portland, and well, you went to Wilson High School. You grew up in Portland. What have you seen since you went to high school? Well,
Portland, first of all, thank you, Sagana, for stating what was stated before. To understand Portland, you have to understand the historical context of Portland. There were certain individuals who were not allowed to get the same mortgage loans depending on where you were at in the city. Because of that, you have residential pockets that are made up primarily homogenous of certain groups. As we've expanded and as we look and other places in the city, you're seeing people seeing opportunities out there, and they're still thinking that maybe that opportunity is not for them. So as we continue to grow, and as I've seen Portland change, you've seen a lot of people shift in the demographic shift, and they're looking for the opportunities that weren't necessarily afforded to them because there was just a different type of thinking at that time. And it's great to see us progressing. We still have a long ways to go, but with our advocates and with the city and with us having this discussion, we're able to identify opportunities and move forward together.
We have one other graphic that kind of speaks to this, that shows the African American population and how it diminished in North and Northeast Portland over the years. And the first one shows 1970, and if you look at the orange and red colors, you can see there's a lot there. That shows the larger population in North and Northeast Portland of African Americans of 31 to 84%. But right next to it, that's 2010. You can see the orange and red have disappeared, and now the population's about 2 to 18% in a lot of those neighborhoods. Governing Magazine identified Portland as the place in the country that has seen the most gentrification over the last decade. And I know you're working on a program at the city, and Daniel, you're part of this too, a right to return, to bring some of these residents back to North and Northeast Portland. There was a groundbreaking on a
the
project,
Beatrice
right,
Murrow by PCRI.
To bring
yes.
people back. So tell us about that.
Okay, so what you're referring to is the preference policy, and Daniel is familiar with that. So just to give you a brief overview, it's for everyone, but it's based off city action that caused displacement. So any Portlander that lived in North and Northeast Portland can apply through this preference policy, and it just creates the list for opportunities of housing developments that are being, the money is being sourced from what's called the interstate corridor. And that's the urban renewal area. So the preference policy is aimed at identifying families that have been displaced, no matter what your race is. And if you don't have displacement actions happening, you can still apply through this policy. So yes.
And Daniel, are you working with clients on that?
Yes, I am. One of the things is that a lot of the people that aren't living there, they would love to go back, but now they're realizing how expensive it is, you know. And I've had some people actually not want to participate because they, you know, it's so expensive. But, you know, they have to understand, you know, how bad do you really want it? You know, what are you willing to sacrifice? And is that where you really want to be? And so for the clients to think about where do they want to be overall, because it's a long-term decision, 30 years for a mortgage, you know. And so is that where you really want to be, where you want to grow up? And so, you know, thanks to the city of Portland and working with this, a lot of people are saying, well, let's give it a shot, you know. And that's what we're there. We're there to help people, you know, figure out, you know, if they can come back there. And, you know, worst case scenario, if they can't, at least prepare them for homeownership somewhere else.
And they can find out more about this on the city's website?
Yeah, on the city of Portland's website, if you go to the Portland Housing Bureau, we have updates about the preference policy, and there's ways that anyone can apply, and it just orders a list. So we would encourage everyone who would like to have housing opportunities to apply through the preference policy if it's specific to North and Northeast Portland.
Yep.
Shalonda, did you want to say something about that?
I just wanted to say, you know, because when I talk to my clients and they're nervous about the home buying process, I always encourage my clients that it's all about getting ready. And so what we do is we talk about their credit, we talk about their budget, we talk about their income, and figure out strategies and ways to get them mortgage ready. And I think for anyone, because homeownership, access to homeownership is available for everyone. Again, it's all about kind of this position that you're in, but getting the knowledge and knowing where you are in that and learning the steps to become mortgage ready. I've had several clients who, you know, they come in because there's a lot of ins and outs about becoming a homeowner, and there's a lot of lingo and documents and things like that. However, when they come in, because they hadn't sat down and they haven't had this one-on-one conversation with someone, mapping out, looking at their income, looking at their budget, looking at their credit, and saying, hey, you know, I've had a couple of clients over the last couple of days that they thought their goal was about 2 years timeline in purchasing. But after we did the math, and with certain programs, down payment assistance programs that are available, they can purchase in maybe 12 months. You know, so being able to get yourself in a position, just making sure that you can become mortgage ready no matter where you're able to.
Well, they can come into your office and talk to you about that.
Yeah.
I want to talk more about the future of Portland, what it looks like, and we'll talk about that after the break. We're back in 2 minutes.
This program is